which is an improvement, right? We were worried that they weren't going to be able to do it, and hopefully against SKT, if they can actually get an advantage, because both of these teams get early leads, they could be able to take a little bit more.
Yeah, context on Jad's point about SKT. They have led in 63 minutes out of the 65 minutes that they've been on the Rift. So that's only 2 minutes that they've not been leading the game, and that was the first 2 minutes in their game against C9.
Yeah, I mean, they don't count minute 0 in this stat, and then I guess the other team shoved the lane. And other than that, SKT has been able to dominate them. So they've definitely been the most dominant team we've seen, and they've only ever lost 4 games at Worlds. They lost 3 in 2013, 1 in 2015 in the finals, and they've yet to lose here. So they're pretty good.
That's a scary stat. That is a scary stat, actually. If I was playing against that and I heard that's, oh, Jesus.
Right, hopefully they have their headsets on already, because that would definitely make me feel a little worried going into this matchup. But Faker on your screen here, I mean, he's talk of the town.
I guess that is. That's the biggest story for me. I mean, we knew that he was coming in on reasonably good form, but like, how does that stand up on the world stage and with the rest of the team around him not really performing in the LCK? Where does that leave Faker? And the answer to that question was like better than ever. I mean, this guy's once again on a tear. So I think that when you look at this SKT lineup and you have a look at, you know, the Karsa Maple synergy, you start to worry because Karsa's maybe slumping a little bit. And if he can't help Maple out, how does this mid lane even go? Because Maple does not take a step backwards. He always likes to step up in a lane.
And to that point, SKT is one of the best teams that's actually removing vision around mid lane. Anytime that they recognize that there is vision in that area, they will just go in there with as many people as they can to just sweep it out as quickly as possible and just allow Faker to have as much pressure as possible and make that mid laner just feel completely constricted.
History suggests that Flash Wolves might find success against SKT, but recency says that SKT has it all. And while defending his team's title, Wolf is focused on his own play and isn't concerned with other tournament favorites.
뭐 저희 팀이 우승할 거다라는 생각을 하시는 분이 많은지는 잘 모르겠어요. 아마 뭐 락스나 뭐 TSM이나 뭐 RNG, EDG 쪽을 그렇게 생각하실 것 같았는데 그래서 그런지 별로 그런 압박은 없는 것 같아요. 그냥 뭐 제 할 것만 잘하고 좋은 성적 최대한 내서 후회 없는 게임만 하고 싶어요.
Well, they certainly have played well so far. Welcome back, League fans. I'm Pyrotechnics here with LS and special guest Alex Ish, and we are going to get straight into the mid lane, guys. Alex is rejoining the desk to help us dissect this matchup between Maple and Faker. I can't wait.
Yep, I'm super excited for this matchup too, and I think SK Telecom, you know, they're looking for the 3rd World Championship.
Yeah, well, they've been close to flawless so far.
Yeah, they're the Korean team that's holding true right now.
Absolutely.
And just taking a look at some highlights, and this is from yesterday's game where Flash Wolves took a huge lead and they couldn't finish it out against Cloud9. And if Jensen Karsa were Super Saiyan level 1, well, Faker and Bengi are Super Saiyan level 2.
Absolutely. They've definitely been on a whole nother level, and now you just got to compare the two of them. But this is stuff from MSI. Remember, the Flash Wolves actually had the better of SK Telecom, but that was a long time ago. This is starting to be definitely looking like SKT on proper form, and Flash Wolves have some answers to try and find.
I mean, Faker in this tournament looking much better than he was looking in LCK, MSI, where like this is his probably top pick in this year, and I mean, I guess that's his buff or something. Every Worlds, there was no Worlds where Faker won't perform.
And they were the first team to actually break the curse, man. They came back after winning Worlds, coming back in, and you know, not the top seed, but they certainly have looked like it. And Rock's, well, a little bit shakier, but you know, what can you expect? Like, SKT's always going to perform. It looks like it.
Like, I don't know, Faker, it is really hard to say something about him. Like, you see him underperforming, but then it's very hard to put blame on him because it's like the entire team. Yeah. And when the entire team steps up, you see where Faker shines. He shines at putting pressure and making the plays around him. He makes you to require having your jungler, your support, almost like your whole team in the mid lane to actually restrict him. And the games where he was like losing or underperforming were usually the games where his jungler just doesn't put any pressure and the enemy jungler is just camping him. But we could see here, maybe it's because of jungle pools, or maybe they finally like found out how to play as a team. They're doing much better.
Yeah, they certainly have found some of their answers, and they've been able to do a few swap arounds in the jungle. Remember, Blank is in for this game, but Bengi didn't look too shabby at all. And curious to see if it really does change things for them, because it doesn't seem to have so far. Like, they seem to be doing all right with Blank.
Yeah, I mean, Blank opens up some aspects to their team that Bengi doesn't offer, and that's because he is the mechanically better player. And so yesterday we saw, Blank just constantly running around inside of his opponent's jungle, and it was basically like SK Telecom was playing with map hacks.
Yeah, it certainly looked that way. And it allowed Faker to kind of have his way with the mid lanes. So far, he hasn't had any trouble. Maple, well, historically, he's given Faker a little bit of pause, but we'll have to see if that's still going to hold true. Flash Wolves haven't picked up a game just yet, and this would be a hell of a way to do it. Starting off in the picks, it's an instant lock-in for Cassiopeia.
Yeah, that's really interesting. They banned the Nidalee on the first pick, and this is like telegraphing that they have something else in mind, and that one is Cassio. So now we gotta see what is the Flash Wolves answer and what is the counter for Cassio.
Yeah, the Vlad ban, the Syndra ban. Be curious to see what Flash Wolves take, but they don't have to do it on this rotation. They can get themselves a couple of powerful picks in other roles.
Yeah, and it looks like they are going to select Lee Sin Alistar, so change back over to Poppy. And what they want to do here is they don't want to give away too much information. Lee Sin almost pairs with everything. He goes with anything, all right? He's like your navy blue jeans or something. So they just take him right away, and
no problem.
how they're going to hand it back over to SK Telecom and see what info they can get.
Yeah, still had a lot of long games for Flash Wolves with the Lee Sins, but yeah, I'm curious to see what they end up doing with cars on it.
I'm not a big fan of Lee Sin. I mean, I understand the champion is super strong, and this tournament, he's shown really great results. But I would wait for AD carry first to see, because like if they pick something like Ezreal, it's really hard for Lee Sin to get picks on anything, because Ezreal is really safe AD carry, and then mid laner Cassio, I mean, it's hard to gank her or kill her, and if she gets a good ult on you, you just get one shot. So I would rather probably see some either later jungle pick or something like Elise.
Yeah, it's kind of curious. Like, I'm wondering what Cars is going to be able to do differently than Meteos, in all honesty, because he hovered around so long, he just couldn't get anything done.
One of the interesting things that I like to see from SK Telecom is they're doing it different from Samsung Galaxy and the Rox Tigers. This team comp that they've already drafted, even without seeing their bottom lane, it's super hyper aggressive. And the Olaf, I didn't even expect it, again, because Korea, that champion is almost completely absent there. But the junglers that were left up and remaining, Lee Sin, Elise, etc., they can't do anything to Olaf.
Yeah, that's a good point. On the other hand, something the Flash Wolves might have up their sleeves that they weren't able to show due to the ban previously, the Aurelion Sol, we saw who he wrecking on it in the previous game, but, well, this might be a tougher task. You said hyper-aggression. I'm curious if the Olaf does make a quick appearance in the middle, and it's not something Korea really had shown prior to this.
Right.
Yeah, I forgot about Aurelion Sol again. Cassiopeia usually does not that great into Aurelion Sol, and Aurelion Sol is like a counter. So basically, the idea is Aurelion Sol can proc the Storm Raider Surge to evade most of the damage from Cassio. He can shove in Cassio, and Cassio's wave clear, even though it's like good, it's not fast enough. So basically, he can always have the first hand in the lane, which can help him. We saw what he did was Aurelion Sol, so let's see if Maple can replicate that.
Yeah, we'll see. Just waiting on word to see if we're going to have to end up changing the picks and bans one more time. It looks like it's going to get back into the game soon, but yeah, it's just assuming everything does stay that way. Like, that matchup is actually really, really interesting, I feel like. I mean, it's obviously he's very specialized on this kind of champion, but Maple, I mean, you typically look at him as having a much more like aggressive style, and I guess you can be aggressive on Aurelion Sol, but it plays very differently.
Yeah, it does play very differently, and I don't think that SK Telecom are going to be too uncomfortable against it. SKT does scrim against KT a lot, and the best Aurelion Sol player arguably in the world is KT Fly. So I'm sure that they have a lot of practice against this champion.
That's a good point.
And so I'm sure that they've prepared mentally how they would react in the event that it did show up.
Yeah, and actually the pick and ban are going to continue with the same champions due to a player error. We're going to just remake with the same stuff so far, so we'll get back up to speed on that. But in the meantime, we can keep on theory crafting. I asked this the last time Elise Sin was up against Faker. Where is it going to go? Do you just not bother to try and gank him? Because he's always going to be slippery.
I mean, if you get actually Aurelion Sol and you can get him going, then Lee Sin can go into enemy jungle. And even though he can fight all of 1v1, I don't think it's a goal, because if Aurelion Sol goes with you and Cassio has to clear the wave, so she follows second, you're first there, and then you can like get the jungle control, and because of that, you can start roaming with Soul either bottom or top and get advantage that way.
Yeah, and you can keep Faker off the blue buff as well. That's definitely, I mean, that's a pretty good way to shut him down. Otherwise, you know, we saw the Poppy up top. That's something that can be pretty safe for a while. Flash Wolves really do like to play it a little bit slower. I feel like this kind of suits their style. Do you think with the hyper aggressive stuff that we saw from SKT that will even be allowed?
Well, I mean, one of the things with Flash Wolves' draft is they do have a lot of aggression inside of that Lee Sin and the Aurelion Soul, but they don't have so much there up in the top lane. And so SK Telecom, it's going to come down to how does Blank manage the lanes with the Olaf pick, and they need to definitely contain that Aurelion.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So a lot of focus will be on this mid. It's a good thing we focused on this matchup for sure. Yeah. Totally unplanned, right? But Maple and Faker, what? I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. That's always going to be hype, right? Like you kind of expect them to go at each other, even though it's not an assassin meta. And I'm really would not be surprised if we see a lot of early action there, not just in the junglers. Like if there ever is going to be a matchup where we might see a one-on-one kill, Faker's already done it a couple times himself.
Yeah, that is the biggest problem of the lane is. Because you have a jungle Olaf, basically Faker needs to 1v1 or even 1v2 the lane, because, I mean, Olaf is not a mid lane jungler, I mean mid lane ganger, right? So even he can counter gank Lee Sin or find him in the jungle, he has like better clear, but in reality, I mean, maximum he can get for Faker is vision. So it will be Faker either fights 1v1, or if Karsa decides to camp mid lane, it's 1v2. And I guess this game will be a lot on Faker, like containing this Aurelion Soul by himself.
Yeah, that's very true, and we didn't get as much into the bottom lane. That was about when we quit out of picks and bans, but we did see the Caitlyn locked in, and you know, not knowing what SKT are going to go for, it does seem Flash Wolves are going for a much more strong lanes all across the board as much as we can in the Lee Sin, just try to facilitate. Like, do you think that's where it slots in, or would there, in your mind at least, LS, would there have been a better jungle pick?
Well, the issue is they had the Lee Sin, and the Aurelion Souls, which hands over the ability to just go Ezreal, but I think that picking Caitlyn first is a way to say, hey, you can't pick this champion now. So it limits Prey's AD carry options, because obviously he is one of the best Ezreal players at this tournament, and he would like to get Ezreal any opportunity that he can. But now we're going to probably have to see a different ADC. We might actually see Lucian come out just because of how he can reposition.
Yeah, maybe that's what they decide to take. I mean, it's kind of like always on the knife's edge because you're like, when's the rest of the pick ban going to happen? So, yeah, I mean, kind of curious to see how they end up rounding out the composition. And Lucian would definitely work well into like an early game. We want to run all over you. And again, this has been two teams who have had the lead for a vast majority of their game time.
Right.
But, of course, Flash Wolves have had it for a lot longer in absolute minutes and have not been able to close both times. I mean, where do you think it's really going wrong for this team overall? And can they really do that? Change that against a team like SKT?
Well, one of the biggest problems, at least that I'm witnessing at this Worlds, is a lot of the teams, at least at this World, Season 6, the early game is very even, for the most part, across a lot of teams. But then when it begins to reach the mid-game and the late game, I think those are the most complex stages of the game where you really have to know exactly what you're doing and how the minions are going to interact relative to your team's level, and what sort of dragon timings do you want to go for, or baron timings, that it begins to add a lot of problems that maybe not all the teams are as practiced on. And so it looks like Flash Wolves is one of the victims of the late game issues.
Yeah, that's true. And on the other hand, SKT just haven't had any trouble at all in the early game. They've kind of run away with it as we're back into picks and bans. I mean, Alex, do you think like they're not even challenged right now? Like SKT, could Flash Wolves be the team to surprise them?
I think Aurelion Sol is the champion that can surprise them. That's for sure.
Hope they were watching last game.
After watching last game, after watching Abdo interview, saying that there are a lot of great players that got their challenger in solo queue by playing only one champion, I think that this champion, he just changed the flow of the game entirely. Basically, when you play against him or Talia before the nerf, it just like the way of playing is like other. It's just not the same as against usual mid laners, because he clears the wave super fast and then he can roam fastest out of any mid laner. So basically, you gotta assume it's like TF, but always with ultimate and always level 6. I mean, we saw who he's roaming at level 1, so we can say it's TF that can like start ulting from level 1.
Yeah, it's not something you can really prepare for.
And with better laning phase.
Look at what's on the other side, right? It's a Karma Sivir. Like, that's going to be hit just as hard.
Yeah, it's literally SKT pick reminds me the pick of G2, which basically you have Karma bot lane, you're against Alistar, and you're against Aurelion Sol. So if he suddenly gets a roam, and then Alistar gets a Q flash, the bot lane is dead.
Yeah, and I guess all eyes are going to be down that way if he does do the level 1 roam. I mean, really excited to see if he's, taking a leaf out of who he's booked or developed it kind of independently. I kind of doubt Faker's going to let him leave as easily, though. Like, I mean, he does things on champions that you can't always expect. But we'll see. As we're on to the Rift, we're loaded up. Remember, guys, to hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag AskTheCasters. We'll pick and answer some of your questions during the game.
And, as we get into this game here, one of the questions for me is, are we going to see another team make the same mistake of trying to check brushes against an Olaf? We've seen that actually a lot of times this tournament, and just yesterday, Peanut had to blow Flash, and he almost died. He would have had the undertow hit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and we will see if Karma decides to face check Alistar, and that Alistar gets a unlucky first blood. But yeah, this is a really interesting game in terms of mid lane, what's gonna happen, because we have a really strong 2v2 comp of Aurelion Sol and Lee Sin. Aurelion Sol can shove in, and probably it's finally the champion that can negate Faker, because he can just, if you cannot lane against Faker because he's like superior mechanically, you can always just clear the wave and run away.
Yeah, and you can out-zone the Cassiopeia early on, both, of course, running this Ghost Summoner spell. Not a whole lot to worry about the cleanse for this time around. And Maple just kind of hanging out in this brush. I like the line of scrimmage here from Flash Wolves just to keep it kind of locked down on their own side of the map, playing this one out safely. And that's pretty characteristic of them, it seems.
Yep. And so we're just going to have pretty standard openings, and SK Telecom knows exactly where Flash Wolves is starting, and a lot of this game will be decided by the mid lane matchup. And also, I'm very surprised that Bang actually went with the Sivir. It's very synergistic with SK Telecom's team composition, and it also has the ability to go Yumu's Ghostblade. And the reason that I say that is because SK Telecom has a very strong early game timing, and it's unlikely that a lot of Flash Wolves will build armor.
Yep. So Maple at the level 1, he actually does decide to go ahead and rock up towards the Raptor camp, just takes one small one. And he has level 2, Faker still sitting at 1. But Faker's really been able to dodge away from the stars. I mean, just pixels away from actually getting hit.
I mean, we could have seen that, you see, he
there he
hits
goes.
level 2 first, so he has a pressure. And also at level 1, Faker tried to trade, and he actually got a good trades. But the problem of trading against Aurelion Sol, even if you out-trade him, he can still push out the lane at level 3, just recall, and come back without losing anything.
Yeah, we're also already seeing him just do slightly different things, but now he's going to be able to roam wherever he wants, and you have to think this is going to put the fear into Bang & Wolf for the start of it. Let's hit up a couple of the questions that we got on Twitter, actually. Just to start things off, we did talk about SKT being so consistent overall, and Nick Dang43, he's going to ask, why is it that SKT is showing so much consistency, and why other top teams, hence EDG, ROX, RNG, have not?
I think all the consistency of the teams this tournament is coming from the champion select and meta. And I think SKT understood the best what is the meta of the tournament, the picks and bans. And I think their pick ban was superior to other teams at this tournament.
I think that SK Telecom is, they're picking and playing more to their strengths and more to the weaknesses of Western teams, whereas other teams like Samsung Galaxy, ROX Tigers, etc., their drafts have been very bizarre, and I think that it enables Western teams to really get leads against them and just punish them.
Yeah, this is really what the science behind SKT World Buff kind of is, I suppose. Maple's a little bit low here, and Faker now he senses an opportunity to try and push him back. He's kept pretty well even on farm, but we obviously haven't seen the junglers yet, still really early. And speak of them, Blank's actually up top, and he's going to get met up by Karza. That's all happening off screen for the time being, but I am curious to see when Karza does decide to make an appearance. Obviously, like the last time we saw Faker on Cassiopeia, he kind of wrecked. Really not a whole lot of trouble for him up against Jaime.
That's what you want to do on Olaf. You basically just want to find the enemy jungler and just be into his face. So because you cannot gank yourself, you'd rather just give the vision and give information for your teammates. So now they know Lee Sin is in the bot side jungle, and all the lanes can play accordingly. And after that, after he knows exactly the location of Lee Sin, he can just go and farm his jungle.
Yeah, he hasn't had any trouble. And he sees him as he clears away. Scuttle Crab here. Maple's still pushing him. I mean, I really want to see how he ends up adapting. If he just like keeps pace constantly and doesn't really give Maple an opening to actually get the pick off, this is going to be a quick back for Maple too, or so he's starting it. Cancels after that. What do you think, LS? Like, is Faker like opening himself up for opportunities, or is he playing this out as perfectly as he can?
I think he's playing this really, really, really well right now. He's ahead in CS even when Maple was recalling, because you have to factor in that Maple had one of the small wraiths, which is worth significantly less gold. So he's ahead in CS. I think that he's controlling the lane pretty well. Karsa has not been able to do anything yet, and all the other lanes for SK Telecom are doing really well.
Yeah, I mean, the way Maple plays, he just pushes out the lane, so he doesn't give any opportunities for Lee Sin. And then Blank gave all the information Faker needs about the Lee Sin to like just ward the bot side and basically being safe of any gank for like 2 minutes. And now Maple had to recall, or I'm not sure if he actually had to, but he decided to. And he doesn't really lose much because he's Aurelion Soul, but Faker gets a better recall because he recalls with more amount of gold.
Yeah, some actions heading down on bot side. Sword Art burning both of his summoners there, and you know, same thing happening with Wolf, but no kills end up being traded. Maple gets free time on the tower with Faker's back, but that's the Cassiopeia having the TR already at 5.5. And you know, you talked about how well he's playing this at LS. We've got another one on Twitter from Riot Tuxedo, local. I'd like to hear some more thoughts about Faker's wave management in the first couple minutes of the game.
I mean,
it's not so much a question, but you know.
Faker's wave management is according to this matchup. So basically, Aurelion Soul is just pushing him in, and as Cassio, he was doing his best to try and trade. But in reality, especially after Maple got the blue buff, it's really hard to trade. So he was just basically farming out the wave and making it freeze towards himself, which makes it hard because like further in lane you go against Cassio, she can just run you down.
Speaking of running him down, Blank was there, but Maple just takes a side of beef to the face.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's just... Blank is just giving the vision for Faker.
Yeah, and basically what's happening right now is Maple, even though he's on this Aurelion Soul, he's not able to do anything with it. I feel like he's mismanaging the lane relative to his jungle matchup. He might be able to try to do something right here because Karsa's here.
There was the ult really quickly. Okay, in comes Karsa. Faker has to ghost and flash, but they're being followed, and that's going to be first blood. It's over to Karsa.
This is the problem Faker got in LCK, where he sometimes gets too overconfident, and he thinks that he got all the vision. I think that ward doesn't give enough vision, and Lee Sin sneaked through it, because I think Faker was completely sure he's 1v1, so he went for that trade, and he didn't see the Lee Sin coming. And after that, he didn't dodge the Aurelion Soul ult with his flash, and I mean after that he's dead.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean that was nice, and you can see this one more time, like where Karsa ends up coming from, and Faker's already pushed so far forward.
Yeah, and
I think he thought he had the 1v1.
Yeah, he was almost fairly confident he had the one. Wait, did that not stun? Did you see that?
Sure. Did he turn away?
He juked it.
Did he juke?
Yeah, he turned it around.
Okay. We need an instant.
I wasn't looking at his. Yeah, I was
a replay.
At his face.
So basically, Maple played it really well, and I think Faker could have dodged the gank if he flashed the Aurelion Soul ult, but he didn't. So we can say that Faker, first of all, he didn't know where the jungler is, and he went aggro for no reason. I think he was playing good till that moment.
Yep.
But I mean, if you go overconfident, then you instantly get punished.
So even though this is focused pretty heavily on the mid lane, right? I wanna go a little bit more into depth about what Karsa was able to do there and what he's done at the start of this game, because when Cloud9 played off against SKT and Meteos was running the Lee Sin, he had a very, very different tack. What makes Karsa so different? Like, his jungle pathing just seems so much better.
Well, I feel like this game he's getting outplayed by Blank actually quite heavily in the jungle. You can see that he's down 14 CS, and I do think that the gank was pretty good in mid lane. It was very standard. Obviously, he has to take the opportunity. But other than that, I feel like the problem that Karsa's having is that his laners aren't able to create opportunities for him, and he's not able to force the opportunities for himself.
Yeah, same thing that the junglers have kind of had an issue with just overall when your lanes aren't really be able to set up. But you know, one good play so far. Still going to take a lot more of those, it seems.
I'm actually not sure about Meteos, but like watching Karsa, I need to rewatch it again because I think his jungle camps were down at top side, but then he still went from the top side, which can be he actually probably bypassed all the camps. So what is the difference between him like and other junglers that play Lee Sin? He went for ineffective route, and usually, you know, junglers, they ping you out the how to say, most effective route, so they will probably think he's not there because his jungle camps are down, and that can catch off guard the mid laner or any other laner.
Yeah, and you know, just to go off of that, one of the issues is they have to predict that Faker would go aggressive. Because the lane, the way that it was not a gankable lane, so the inefficient route that he was choosing to do, I don't think there's a way for him to really be a psychic there and no Faker's going to go aggro, so I think it's actually poor in the end.
Yeah, it's just it's just a high risk, high reward, I would say, because like maybe he's playing into Faker's mentality here. He's like, he knows they just worried for Faker almost everywhere and gave the vision. So like this is the point where Faker usually starts playing aggressive. So they either have a read on him or it's just pure luck and he went for an effective route, and basically if that gank didn't work out, he would be super far behind from Blank right now.
I guess sometimes you get lucky, right?
I mean, that's how you win worlds.
Yeah,
just by luck, no skill involved.
All right, well, thanks for the pro advice, Alex. Faker's going to get a big wave delivered right to him. And again, he's been fairly safe outside of that gank, so he seems to be playing this one pretty well. But this is going to be like a super slow march to build up. He's on his tier. He's stacking that one up. I'm curious to see where the roams come in because you can see Wolf going in for some deep vision. But that's about all we've kind of seen on this side of the map.
Yeah, and one of the problems that Flash Wolves is going to have is the lanes that should have won way harder did not. I think it's very surprising how Flash Wolves in bottom lane, even after the advantageous gank, that Blue Summoners, they weren't able to do anything with it, and Bang is still ahead in CS. And then in mid lane, Aurelion Sol is a champion that you pick because you need to make plays happen. I like to think of him as like an old Eve, where if he doesn't get kills and he doesn't get gold, he's very vulnerable once it comes to the mid game, and that's where SK Telecom's team composition is the strongest.
Yeah, it does seem a little bit strange that Flash Wolves have kind of been so passive overall, and now that's starting to change. You see Maple looking for a roam down bottom side, but they're spending all this time in the jungle, and all they're really doing is actually placing a couple of wards. It seems, I don't know, it seems kind of like indecision.
I feel like Flash Wolves just giving too much respect to SKT. They're too afraid to go into his jungle, and I don't know, this game, I feel like it becomes the goal is to kill Faker.
And they're going to do it. One more shot. Oh, wait, he dodged. No, Maple, he gets it.
Oh
wow.
Yeah.
That was like 3 misses in a row, and now Blank's chasing down Karza. That was not the cleanest kill, but he got it.
Yeah, like the problem I have with Flash Wolves, that according to their comp, it would be much probably, at least it feels better, if instead of just camping Faker and trying to kill him over and over, which they succeed in, they would expand their pressure into enemy jungler because they have superior mid lane pressure for sure. And then with that, if they get the vision control of enemy jungle, they can like, get their Alistar going. And then either Alistar comes to help them kill Faker, which will make it much easier, or they just go and kill the bot lane. Like you get the lead mid lane, but it is really good if you can expand that lead. So I hope from now on, they will start expanding the pressure Maple has, and like shoving out the waves and roaming bot lane. And as we can see, they teleport Poppy bottom lane.
Yeah, you can already see it. So Bang, Wolf, Blank, they're all on it, and they're going to take down NL really quick. Sword Art, MMD's in here. I mean, this has just become a massive, massive skirmish right now, and Duke threw down the ultimate as well, but the Poppy Copter ejected the rest, and now we're going to go straight back to mid lane. So it's been a little bit of action across the board, but Maple with that lead. I'm a little bit surprised that he actually ran all the way into SKT's base because Karza was kind of preoccupying Blank. I think he could have gotten away there.
I mean, it doesn't matter if you get executed.
That's
He would have
true.
recall after that, so he doesn't lose much. And this way you don't risk of dying. And this is just
Karza things.
unlucky.
When you recall an award, there is a lot of deep vision now for Flash Wolves. Like, it does seem like they're starting to make use of it, and the fact that Faker pretty much like is just getting massive waves delivered to him while he's busy chowing down, you can get a roam on to try and get a bit more vision out.
One of the interesting things to me about that Karsa play was, I don't know if that ward saw Blank.
Here's the
but maybe
dive.
it didn't. Yeah.
Oh, he flashes right into Wolf, and MMV pins him against the wall. Big pickup there now.
Yeah, finally we can see them expanding their lead. That's what I was hoping for. They're just Maple can be everywhere, and Faker is contained to his lane. And if Faker tries to follow, they can even kill him because they have superior vision.
Yep, and here comes Maple, and this is really beautifully orchestrated by them. They just pick up the kill onto Wolf, and I think that they're going to be able to get the First Blood Tower as soon as we go back to the live.
Well, they couldn't quite finish it,
Yep.
but now they do. So MMD and Cars, it took them a little bit longer. But yeah, like Faker's just preoccupied by minions this entire time. It seems like Flash Wolves are starting to play this out really well. It just took them a few minutes.
Yeah. So we can see that Flash Wolves are extending their gold lead streak and finally beating the SKT in the gold lead per minute.
Oh boy, I mean that starts to shift. One team had to do it.
But yeah, we gotta see if they can finally like contain their lead and then lead it to the success.
Yeah, well they have a lead, but it's not massive at 14.5, right? It's 22.3k to 23.9. Like that's 1,500. It's decent, but a fair amount of that is in like kills on Karza right now. So he like really has to start doing a lot more work right now. Otherwise, he's just gonna, he's gonna be okay with like tank stats later on in the game. But that's not gonna translate in the long run. It seems.
Yeah, this is like a solo queue game where the Lee Sin gets all the kills, and then you're like, if you don't win it, then you'll probably lose it. Because, I mean, the champion is good at snowballing, but if you don't snowball hard enough, you're gonna lose. And Aurelion Sol is actually a snowball champ too. I don't think they scale as well as SKT.
Interesting. All right, well, Faker does get locked up, and Maple, he does dodge the ultimate, goes on, looks for Faker. He might just get this one solo, but MMD's there with the wind-up, and he's gonna dodge it.
Faker has the...
He's got the mechanics.
Some moves.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just like Maple outplays Faker completely, and then misses the screen-wide skill shot. It just...
That's your definition of unlucky.
I don't even know how to feel about that. He dodged the Casio ult, he did everything perfectly, and then he missed the ultimate super wide. I mean, I understand that Faker ghosted, but it wasn't even close.
And Faker ghosted pretty early on.
Yeah, this was really weird.
Not before the Aurelion. Okay, here we go.
I'm pretty sure that Maple, he just greeted his ult, and here, like, he could have ulted just in his stun to 100% hit him, and then it's the slow that will lead up into the kill. He thought he can get it without an ult, and then because of that, it's just like when you're like, oh, my ult is too late, maybe I need to ult now, and then he just missed it.
Still a little bit unlucky. Yeah, there's a lot of people up top right now too, but they're holding firm mid.
Maple's still playing really, really well.
I want to point out to viewers watching, though, that Faker's movements, when you're doing something like that and when you're running and trying to dodge a lot of skill shots in a short amount of time, you want to make sure that you're spam clicking as close to your champion as possible to have the most control over the avatar. And just moving it in and out of pixels that may or may not be hitboxes.
Yeah, it's pretty fair. I mean, Faker's just shows a whole lot of interesting stuff, but Maple is like playing on another level than a lot of the mid laners we've seen in this group, in this tournament, I would say even. But how much of it's him and how much of it's like what Aurelion Sol's kids is allowing him?
I mean, it's Aurelion Sol, it's him, and it's SKT having all of jungle. I mean, it just... all of jungle, he cannot do anything against Storm Raider Surge mid laners with the Ghost. It just, no matter what, they will probably proc off their Storm Raider Surge from the fight, and then they will just run away.
Yep.
And speaking of Aurelion Sol specific stuff too, like we don't often talk about the Hextech GLP. I know it's like a standard Aurelion Sol build. LS, do you want to run me through why that's why it's so good on him?
The slows and the way that he coordinates inside of ganks or just team fights is really, really good. And it's mostly a superior buy to Roa, given that you do get that active. And it just really helps for setting stuff up for him and making sure that he can land a stun.
Yeah, on top of that, Aurelion Sol is just a snowball champion. His scaling in the mid game is really, like, power spike in the mid game is really good, but then into late game, he's quite questionable scaling. So you want to get as much power spike as possible and just snowball it. And this is the point of the game where he shines. He has the most damage, and this slow helps with his W. It helps him proc the Storm Raider Surge, or Thunderlords if he has it, and it helps to land like all the skill shots basically, so enemies have to either flash or die.
Yep. And now we're entering into the stage of the game where it doesn't look like either team really wants to prioritize the Cloud Dragon, and something like... no, never mind, nothing's really going to happen there. And even though Flash Wolves has 4 more kills and the First Blood Tower, they're not really that far ahead in gold, which is pretty worrying.
Well, it's something bad happened in the top lane, because Duke is 40 CS ahead as Rumble of Poppy. I'm not sure how that matchup goes, but I think Poppy shouldn't fall that far behind, especially if we assume most of the time Blank was spending around the mid lane. I mean, he came into top side too, but was more for the vision.
Oh! Faker's gonna flash out of the Sword Art.
Yeah.
Flash teleport expanded, but it gets cancelled immediately. And yeah, it seems like SKT's just holding on. You talked about Aurelion Sol hitting a power spike. This composition overall can, rely on that early and mid game to kind of get rolling. But now, if SKT can hold on, we've seen Flash Wolves not be able to do it in the late game, and that might be what SKT's banking on.
Flash Wolves are playing in kind of SKT style, where they compared, for example, to Rox Tigers in LCK. Rox is usually like Kuro roaming everywhere and helping his teammates, where SKT's style is mid lane centric, where they pull everyone mid lane. So basically, Flash Wolves, what they could have done is Aurelion Sol roaming with Lee Sin and just dominating the map. Instead, they're just pulling everyone to Aurelion Sol lane to try and kill Faker. And because of that, I feel like they could have got much more advantages by expanding the map. And this way, if they get a kill on Faker and break the mid tower, they will probably finally expand the map. But Faker is playing really well and flashing when he needs to.
So you think it would do Maple a lot better to actually try and start roaming around the map and setting up plays, or is it too late for that?
I think it's too late for that, but that's how usually people in solo queue winning games as Aurelion Sol. They just like push out the lane and roam, and no matter how your other laners do, and especially in like lower elo solo queue, everyone is fighting all the time, and because of that, you can easily get kills. And here you have an Alistar lane, which could be exploited really easily, especially because Karma has her flash blown really early. And then after level 6, it's basically a free dive all the time. So you just push out the lane, roam there, and you threaten the dive, and if they back out, you just get a free tower. So you get the first tower like that, and then because you have a tower advantage, you just like rotate, swap the lanes, and then you get the second tower. And then with 2 towers gone, it's really easy to get the mid tower.
Speaking of rotations, SKT were moving up towards mid. They were hoping to catch Maple off.
Looks like they're going to try to get the Dragon right now, and what this will do is Flash Wolves are going to be able to get top tier 1 tower, and with the Dragon going down and Baron not really being a possibility, what this is going to let SK Telecom do is they're going to be able to create a much more condensed area to farm from at the top tier 2, mid tier 1, bottom tier 2, and that's really going to limit Maple, because then the map is way too small for SK Telecom's side for him to really do anything.
Yeah, definitely seems like they're being pushed back slowly but surely. And while it's all happening, I actually wanted to go back to your point about the Hextech GLP and the stuff it provides. Because you have a question on Twitter from Adventure1441. Is there anything stat-wise or gold-wise that differentiates the Roa and the Hextech GLP, specifically regarding Aurelion Sol? Like, why is it so much better, specifically?
I mean, it's hard to say it's so much better. There are a lot of people that still play Road of Ages. Road of Ages basically gives you the same stat initially as GLP, and GLP gives you burst, and that's probably the only thing that Aurelion Sol kind of lacks, especially on roams. Like, Hextech Revolver is super good item if you can get it early for roams, because it's super easy to kill people. You just come there, and that additional auto for 150 magic damage can make a huge difference on lower level 80 carry or support. And then from that, you get the slowing item, which basically, I mean, one more source of CC. The item is really good specifically for this champion because of the kit he has. And other than that, I mean, he probably will get a lot of HP anyway, because the AP is not as effective on him as other stats. So you usually get Rylai's, so or even Banshees or Balls. So you cover the HP department hugely, and mana is not that needed stat on him.
Very convincing, definitely. I'm seeing Flash Wolves here just kind of like rove around and see if they can find anything within the jungle. They do have that top side warded up pretty heavily. So they're playing around it now, and obviously like Baron's on the Rift. Like, what seems to be the plan for them, since they kind of missed a window of opportunity, or several windows of opportunity, after they went and got the bot turret?
Well, one of my main concerns is that a lot of their damage is stored inside of Karsa and NL. And that's going to be problematic because Poppy is just basically pure tank, but she also still does do physical damage. So Maple will probably deal a lot of damage as the game persists, but they're not really doing anything. And we saw their game yesterday against Cloud9 where they can't close out games. So the longer that this goes, the more of an element SK Telecom is going to be in. And then the next Dragon, that's not doing Flash Wolves any justice either.
Yeah, I mean, it's all going to be hard to catch them anyways with the Cloud Dragon and the Ocean coming up. I suppose it's not quite as bad for them as if it had been an Infernal, for instance, but they're just not putting any pressure on the map. It seems like they don't know exactly where they want to go, other than trying to find a few kills. You can see Karza on the minimap was gunning for, but that's about it.
I mean, right now they want to set up kind of 1-3-1, get the vision in the enemy jungle, and get the pressure on the tower with the Caitlyn. But I'm not sure how far they will go against the Sivir, because Sivir wave clear is just too good. And this is really hard. I feel like Flash Wolves missed a lot of their opportunities, and right now what they should look for is the vision around right now around the Baron area, just to, like, Aurelion Sol needs to have a freeway from lane he's like split pushing to the lane they're actually pushing. So if they want to send him top lane, then they should get vision around him, and then send him mid lane. And we can see Maple is going for the play on Faker,
He is. Stops short.
and he decides to not risk it.
That was a little bit strange because we saw Karsa and crew coming up, and I don't think that SKT would have been able to get there in time. So that was a little weird.
It seems like it's going back to them overly respecting SKT. Like, do you think that Maple just thought, okay, maybe he's got backup that I can't see because we don't have any vision up there?
It could be a possibility because, like, this is the problem of Flash Wolves right now. They're either respecting SKT too much or something, but they didn't put that much vision into their jungle, and that vision got cleared, and they didn't even contest it. And this is like probably the best place. I mean, it's a good place for Cassio to fight too in Rumble, but like, it's a good place to fight for Aurelion Sol, and also he can be first compared to Cassio on Rome. So basically, I mean, they're not fighting for their vision, and I don't know, they're not doing anything right now.
Yeah. Well, Maple's just kind of cruising. And of course, it is a mid lane stream, but the mid laners have been just about everywhere. But with the turrets being traded a little bit back and forth, Flash Wolves just keep losing out on the pressure game. They have the gold game, but I mean, it's super narrow at 25 minutes, right? Like, you talked to us about SKT kind of being in their wheelhouse in so much time. It seems like they already are.
Yeah, and one of the other problems is I don't like Karsa's itemization here, or Poppy's. I feel like they're both actually going Ronduin's Omen here. And yes, Bang is going to have a lot of crit, but really I think all that you need to do is one of those two champions needs a Guardian Angel as the third item, because it's going to provide you with MR and armor. And even though, Lee Sin wouldn't have any HP off the Guardian Angel, he still has effective HP off of the Maw against 3 sources of damage from SKT, and Olaf deals true damage anyway, so that doesn't matter.
I think they're both going for the Deadman's Blade though. Or like at least Lee Sin, just for the movement speed, so he can like get behind, try to look for engage. But yeah, Guardian Angel feels like a really good item. Not sure about Lee Sin, because it doesn't matter. I mean, he will probably get one shot no matter what. But as for Poppy, I think Guardian Angel would make a lot of sense, because he can soak a lot of damage with that item.
Yep. And he already has HP from Spirit Visage, so he already has that going for him.
I mean, it is just slightly set to watch when Faker, with no turrets, nothing, just pushing into enemy turret and basically will get it by himself. And I guess, I don't know, just Flash Wolves, they are too afraid of SKT. They, like, SKT, they are known for their good team fighting, and they have really good team fight comp, but I think Flash Wolves could have done a lot of map plays, and they're not doing it. They're just farming it out, and then we'll see. And like, they're giving them free dragons, they're giving them free farm, free vision, and compared to, like, Flash Wolves had lead, but now SKT have deep vision in their jungle. Faker is just, because of the vision he has, he just pushes in, and he will get the tower by himself, and they got a dragon, and after that SKT will get even ahead in gold.
Oh, they might actually teleport behind him here and synergize with Aurelion Sol. That might be the play. Yes, it will be. MMD is coming, and can Faker get out of this?
That's always going to be the question. In he goes! That's going to bang Faker up against the wall. They will take him out. Wolf was a bit too late.
Wolf.
And yeah, that might have been the play that Flash Wolves really needed. Flash for Flash. Wolf gets the leash on.
What?
Yep, in goes MMD right around there. Okay, just going on a wild chase for a few minutes, and down he goes. Maple's going to pick up another. Let's see what they can get off of this. Like, Flash Wolves, can they start up a Baron? It looks like it.
They definitely can start the Baron, but it is pretty scary against a Rumble in this situation.
I would say it's more scary against Olaf, because Olaf can almost always steal, and he'll... Oh, okay, he used his ult. Yeah, he got into trap.
They're clearing the traps away here, but the Baron's going down really slowly right now. Sordout's actually getting pretty chunked. There's the Rumble ulti.
That's not a good ult.
They're going to turn off of it. NL, he's going really low, has to heal. It's secured by Flash Wolves. How big is this for them right now?
This is really big for Flash Wolves, but I think it says a lot that they chose to just run away from this. There was no teleport up for SK Telecom. Faker can't magically teleport to that side of the map. Lee Sin has Flash, and he had a pink ward, so he could have easily done an insect. So anyway, right here, this is a perfect setup. Faker did not know there was a pink ward in there. Wolf tried to get to him to save him, but because of the route that Flash Wolves took, he had no intel that this was coming. But then when we go back to the Baron fight, I think it reiterates that Flash Wolves looks super terrified by SK Telecom, because I feel like that was an opportunity to ace, and they chose not to take it.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a strange thing when, like, you give a team so much leeway that you don't take opportunities that might win you the game, and like you mind game yourself. Like, Alex, you've played some big names in your day. Like, how did you approach like facing off against like a heavy favorite, for instance?
Yeah, I mean, most of the time we were favorites, and then when people were approaching us, they just throw at Barons. So I guess Flash Wolves were too afraid to throw at Baron, and they just wanted to secure that objective without like all of stealing it. But yeah, it just, I don't know what to say. SKT, they play super reckless this game, especially Faker. This is like the mid lane focus stream, so we can flame Faker a bit, right? This is like the thing he
It's not every
did.
day you get the opportunity.
This is like, you know, when you see that his upside when he played Syndra in just like 1v2 in Window Lane. And this is basically his downside, what he did in LCK. He gets too overconfident. He tries to fight 1v1 without vision, he dies. He pushes out, split pushes the lane to the tower with no tower behind and with no respect to enemy teleport or anything, and dies because of that. He doesn't flash the abilities like 2 times. I think he could have flashed Poppy if he saw her on time. He could have flashed Aurelion Sol ultimate. He didn't do that. And this is just... I mean, Flash Wolves giving a lot of respect to SKT, but at the same time...
Cars are randomly dying.
Yeah, it just...
Karsa was cosplaying Lee Sin, okay? He couldn't see what was happening.
This is
Should have
just
heard that one coming, though.
really strange what's happening in this game.
It's a bit odd. And I want to actually hit up Twitter again, because this one's pretty relevant to like talking about SKT and the mistakes they are making this game. You know, just according to, I'm going to totally mispronounce this, it is Frankai. There's a lot of I's in this name. Who would be SKT's biggest challenge if and when they make it out of groups? I think it's fair to say they probably will, but this is definitely a game full of mistakes.
This is so hard to say. This is when you usually say probably themselves, right? Because, I mean, this is mistakes they usually don't do. But, I mean...
It's Worlds, man. You never know what's going to get on your mental.
Yeah, that's why you say Albus knocks Luna, right? After they both get out of groups. One in the first place, one in the second. And
Pulling
then,
for the Russian team? Okay.
and then the brand support will just surprise them to the oblivion. But other than that, I don't know. I mean, TSM is like really strong team, really strong looking at this tournament. So I think they could have given SKT a run for the money.
Yeah. I think it makes a lot of sense.
I mean, Rock's Tigers are not looking hot at this tournament at all, so...
That's definitely fair. Okay, so we're 31 minutes into this. Flash Wolves have kind of like revitalized themselves. The gold actually still remains pretty close. But you can see that they've pushed up. The pressure game's there, but there's flank wards for SKT. What can they do with these?
I mean,
if they last?
Flank wards for SKT, they don't help them much because they don't really have much flank. Basically, their strategy is the strategy that C9 used at playoffs, is you press Sivir ultimate and just run down mid lane. So basically, if you see someone split, you just press the ultimate and then you run him down. And what Flash Wolves should do is like not Lee Sin solo pushing mid lane and like dying randomly. But other than that, I think they should have just set up the push when they had Baron. They should have just grouped as 5. They have Caitlyn. They can easily... Like, Sivir cannot wave clear against the Baron wave at this point of the game. And after that, I mean, they just set the lane of traps, and then they go for the tower. But they're, again, giving too much respect to SKT. They're just afraid that they're gonna fight them 5v5, which they will probably do. And then they can win with, like, their superior teamfight comp with, like, Rumble, Sivir, Cassio. But at this point, I'm not sure this game is just a coin flip, depending on who will suicide, because now it's just Maple pushing out the waves, and Faker will just sit under the turret and clear, and they will probably keep clearing until like the next Baron or like Dragon spawns. Probably no one will contest this Dragon, so it will be like... the game will be decided by either Elder Dragon or the Baron.
Yep. And you know, as you just mentioned, no one's going to contest this this Dragon. SK Telecom free to give it up because it's only the tier 1. And as we both said that,
they
looks like a
decide to
contestation.
This is something I got to introduce you gentlemen to. It's called the Caster Curse. The moment you say something will or won't happen, well, you better believe it will. So there is the contest on the Dragon here. This could be tense for a second, but Blank's actually backing off it. He's not going to be able to secure it. Now the fight is not going to happen.
Woohoo, we were right. But no,
Yay.
in reality, like, Faker was super out of position, so it's really hard for them to fight it. Because basically their comp is just, how to call it, power ball. When they need to be grouped as 5, and then they just run with Sivir ultimate all together, Rumble ult into Miasma, so no one can move, and then you just kill them, roast them, and everything. So whenever someone is not there, it's really hard for them. I mean, Cassio is not a flank champion, so if he's on the other side, he's basically useless, because he'll just...
There you go.
Yeah,
There's the power ball. They're going to look for Maple here. Let's see if they're able to run him down. He's actually out. I was going to say running, but Aurelion Sol just kind of floats. He very casually escaped.
Yeah.
And
Well, he
this
did
is-
use his ghost.
That's true.
This is why Ghost is so good against Sivir meta right now. This is so good for all the mid laners because Sivir was usually the bane because they just run you down and you have 390 move speed. Glad we have Aurelion Sol with 600 move speed and the Ghost, right? To run away from the Olaf with Ghost speeded out. I guess he didn't have Ghost. to
Duke's
speed
in
up.
trouble.
Yeah.
Just gonna go
Okay,
down.
he's going to throw the ulti. He just gets smacked against the wall. Maple picks him up. That's a Rampage kill. This Aurelion Sol's 4-1 and 2 now.
I do want to point out, though, that they had to use a flash for that, and I don't think that's worth it by any means. They knew that Sword Art was coming. Duke's never going to find a kill there. There's no reason to use that flash because Baron's coming up in just a second here. And so Duke will have flash. He has teleport. So, you know, even if he's not physically there at the Baron, he is there in spirit via the teleport. So I don't like that by Flash Wolves. And even though SK Telecom is playing pretty poorly overall, Flash Wolves, even with all these kills and all these advantages they've amassed, they only have like a 2k gold lead, which is really sad.
Yeah, and this goes back to what Alex was saying. You know, kind of like the game is sort of on a knife's edge. It's a bit coin flip because the Flash Wolves are playing with so much respect for SKT, and SKT are kind of making a few random mistakes that are uncharacteristic of them. And I feel like neither team really like fully knows how they want to win this. It's a little strange. Just Blank gets bopped up in the air and throws down his ultimate. Cars is around the side. You can kick him away. This should be the pickup. This is really big for Baron, actually.
I mean, unfortunate. It just, you remember SKT yesterday? It's just another team there. So
Yeah, no kidding.
they probably subbed in someone else.
MMD's here. He's just going to smack people away while the Baron's happening. Flash Wolves are just, I mean, they can clean this up, but they need to realize they just can roll over this team that is making these mistakes right now.
Yeah, it just, let's see if they can close out the game because I don't want to say anything about Flash Wolves.
And closing? Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
know,
like,
I know who you feel, man.
They had like a couple Elder Dragons, Baron, 3 inhibitors down, and then some. They still lost. But this game, I mean, SKT just don't have anything.
Ooh, that was a good flash from Sword Art. He's tanking the tower throughout all of it, and Duke comes a little late to the party. They couldn't quite polish anyone off but Faker, but now Duke is caught up, has to go golden. He's going to fall down right up against his own inhibitor, trying to char Royal Maple, but that's not happening. That's going to be in a tower, inhib tower, I should say, at 36 minutes.
Right. Maybe just Flash Wolves just needed the combination of champions that have 100% sword and engage, which is Alistar. They needed something that will actually like 100% win the mid lane and then will be sort of CC and everything is Aurelion Sol. Because we can see they finally are decisive. They're like, we're ahead, one person is dead, let's go.
Yep, and Faker just went down immediately. So this entire fight was fought without Faker. And it was good. It was good by Flash Wolves. Unfortunately, they couldn't get an inhibitor.
Yeah.
But they do get an opening into the game, and it is mid.
Yeah, they lost an L and all of that too. I mean, that was just kind of on like the second win. But like, here's where they actually finally start to break open a gold lead. Like, this is the widest it's been in a while. It's finally at about 5,000 ahead. And where are Flash Wolves going to go from here? Like, do they try to keep pressuring mid, get that easy inhibitor? Like, you got to think SKT is going to try and start like turtling up on this.
I mean, they probably just get an inhib because it's free. While Aurelion Sol, they probably will maybe try to get a catch on Aurelion Sol. But like, they're setting up right now the waves to just go mid lane after that. But they're like taking the red buff. I mean, they're just going the slow and steady way. And I'm just afraid that they're gonna play against them again. I mean, they're doing everything right. They're just basically preparing the push of the mid lane, so they're getting the waves going. So if they get an inhib and, for example, SKT decides to fight it, they will get too low and then they can go on side lane. But because they're preparing it too slow, there's a chance that Sivir will run down some other lane.
Speaking of, looks like it's on MMDs, but he's got the Poppycopter. He knocks one back and has to go up against the wall with Wolf, and that looks like it's the end of it. Meanwhile, back on mid, SKT just aren't paying attention to a lot of their openings right now. I mean, they're going to save this inhib just barely, but
This is Flash Wolves. I mean, they're just too afraid of SKT at this point. Because, I mean, this was one more auto from Caitlyn. I don't see any way. I mean, she doesn't have flash. Maybe that's what they're afraid of. But I don't think she would have died with the peel and everything from their comp. Like, they still had Baron and everything. They're just playing it as safe as possible. Maybe it's because they threw so many games. But this is, again, throwing the games for them because this is how they lost to C9.
yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Like, Flash Wolves just, when you're down 0-2 in 2 games that were, very, very winnable, you kind of maybe shift your mindset a little bit. It seems like they're just playing, maybe not just because it's against SKT, but just overly safe as a result of being 0-2 in groups.
Yeah, and I do think that what Alex said actually has a lot of potential validity in that they might be so afraid because they've thrown so many times, and that's really showing here in this game. It might not actually just be because of SK Telecom. And we
Here's
are
the Spirit
seeing,
Bomb.
Yep.
All right, so
There
now
it
they
is.
can finish the job. They just completely zone them off, and Hib goes down. We're just shy of 40 minutes here. Flash Wolves, oh man, they're getting big. And let's zero back in on mid lane, because I know this was about the mid lane, but the mid lane pretty much went everywhere else. And we've got a Twitter question that asks a little bit about it. This one's about Blank from Wendy Snoots. What could Blank have done during the laning phase to be more effective in helping Faker win his lane?
He did everything he could. It was just Faker's mistakes that led to him dying a couple times. Because like he didn't flash the ability, and then he was exposed when he didn't need to. Basically, if you have an Olaf jungle, you don't expect like him to do much mid lane, and he did everything. He found Lee Sin like through the first 8 minutes of the game. He always knew where the Lee Sin is. He put the wards in. I mean, I don't think what else Blank could do. I mean, just play another champion, but it is not on Blank.
It's all late for that, yeah.
It all comes down to this. If Blank can get the steal,
Might be able to do it. Oh, there goes the Rumble ulti. They're trying to zone MMDs around the side. He doesn't get it, though. Oh, desperate effort for SKT, and now Flash Wolves, they can start this fight off. Karza NL a little bit low. Blank chasing him down, but he's got no more ulti left. He's going to have to get his GA popped, and Karza, he's going in. Maple just keeps on throwing stars out there. This looks like it's how it ends.
this might actually be game over. But it all came down to that smite. And looks like blank. So that's probably going to be the game, as Flash Wolves are looking to run it down mid. And I can't see a way that SK Telecom can hold this.
Oh, boy. Yeah, I mean, they're just going to chase Wolf down for the rest of it, but there's no inhibitor in the middle. They can start to knock on the towers. Blank, and Wolf, that's apparently where my brain's at these days now, are the only ones left standing and trying to defend this against the Elder Drake push. And with minions marching in, super minions on the way, not a whole lot it looks like they can do. Teleports in, that's going to be game over.
That's going to be game over. Even without Mountain Drake, the towers are going to fall way too fast. There's not enough wave clear for this.
They just knock him right back into tower. Bang can't really do a damn thing, and 42 minutes in, Flash Wolves, they played it really safe. They played it as far back as they could, but they finally were able to take it out, and Maple got big.
Yeah, that was, it was a good win. Flash Wolves, they got a lot of leads early. I think that their second Baron, I thought that was done really clean. I think as best as it could have been done. And then Karsa securing the smite on the Elder Drake wins the game. So SK Telecom, a lot of this is actually all Faker's fault. So this is the mid lane focused stream, and I feel like he's the entire reason that they were under so much pressure. Bottom lane, Bang actually won in a super disadvantageous matchup. Duke absolutely annihilated Poppy. Blank had like a 30 CS lead. Another interesting thing for me about Blank was, with that CS lead, why do you not just live in the opponent's jungle, similar to like what Dandy used to do in Season 4, where you get any sort of a CS lead or a gold lead, and then you just monkey on top of the enemy jungler, and your team knows where he is at all times, as long as your laners are capable of winning.
Yeah, it seemed like neither team overall